Part two of Ross the Boss. Thanks to PointsBet. And Ross, it hurts me to say this, but 6,203 days it'll be on Sunday from that last winning final back in 2004.
And you haven't aged a bit, Lloyd. You look magnificent still. But great days, James Hird, to see the one-hander. Pretty special.
Yeah, OK. So now, as I said, the Bulldogs have fallen off the cliff the last 3 weeks. The Bombers have been really, really good, but their points for and against the last month, Ross, is some interesting reading.
Yeah, fascinating. We know the Bulldogs have come off on their points for. But what I like about the Bombers is they're against. They were 17th or 18th, getting scored against heavily. They've tightened it up to 6. So their profile now, they're continuing to score, but they're defending really well. So they go in full of confidence, top of their game, whereas the Bulldogs, and we'll have a look in depth in some areas, but they have come off on the points form. We know they lost Bruce along the way.
Now, everyone wants to know what's happened to this Western Bulldogs midfield. And look at this. So from rounds 1 to 20, they were dominant. And the last 3 weeks, it's been appalling. So this was for the first 20 rounds. They were ranked first in clearance differential. They've dropped to 17th. That should be for the last 3 weeks, Ross. And then scoring for and scoring against. It's just all falling apart.
Well, as players that I coach would know, it is stark.
Yeah.
That's not just a drop, that's a stark. Yeah. And you can see the concern on Beveridge when you look at him post-game down against Hawthorn. So they're a big drop. I think they're good enough to bounce, but they're going to have to bounce a long way. But we'll get to a couple of the reasons. We'll have a listen to Luke Beveridge talking about some of the reasons, one of the impediments to their success.
Yeah, this was Luke Beveridge, who spoke before the game and then during the week on his issues he's got in the ruck department.
Well, the outcome of the ruck battle is standard for us, Ronnie. So that's what happens every week. We go to the well every week. We don't have a dominant ruckman. What do you think happens if we put a player out there that can't run the game out? The pressure that he puts on his teammates. He's had one full session. He's had one practice match, which was, 8, 12-minute periods. It's not a great preparation going into a final. I think everyone's got to understand what the situation is. If we pick Stefan, we're taking a big risk. I'm not saying we won't. There's a chance we might.
Well, you've got to love it. He's between a rock and a hard place. He's identified the problem. He knows the guy, but is he fit enough and will put too much pressure? And the real point is his midfield's a top-flight midfield. But when you're always losing the tap, you're being reactive rather than proactive. And they're not machines. Over 22 weeks, in the end, it takes its toll. For how great Bontempelli is and Liberatore, they get more heat, they get planning, but they need some proactiveness, and that's his frustration.
Yeah, I don't know what he does, because Stephen Martin shouldn't play because he's underdone. English isn't up to it. Young's not up to it, and they're coming up against this guy.
They're one of the most informed, aggressive, enthusiastic young ruckman, athletic in the competition, Draper. He took it up to Grundy last week and jumped all over him. So they're concerned about English. They had Young. They bring in Martin. So they've got their hands full.
What would you do?
What would I do?
Yeah.
I'd probably back the experience of Martin, say run really smart patterns, just cut off the angles, but compete around the ruck, win it in the midfield, and you don't have to chase too much.
I wonder if he's got a Shane Mumford game in him to try and charge in at Draper in the ruck. But I want to play this, Ross. We all spoke about the Dogs' ball movement for 20 weeks, but they've been carved up a little bit themselves.
Well, they played line of the ball defence. So teams, and the stand the mark rules help. No one's standing the mark there. You take ground and you go in. And the Bulldogs defenders play to the front and you can get it over the defensive bubble. Or you can change angles. You can bring it inside, bring the overlap runners in, bring it to the open side of the ground here like Port Adelaide do. And then we'll look on the off-ball side, all the Bulldogs players trying to get back, but they can't get back. So they run from behind. You can just see over here, 1, 2, 3, trying to get back. But that through the corridor, shifting, the defence can't find you. As they shift the ball, they can't find you, and you end up unattended. They're expecting the top of the square. So Port did it really well, and we'll have a look at some vision at Essendon. Yeah. That's how they play. Their number one attack. They springboard from half-back. They run through from behind. They lengthen the ground, and we'll see here. Devon Smith, he knows their forwards are pushing to the goal square. There's going to be midfield space all through this area to come back inside through. So composed, and there it is. There's that big gap, and there they are out the back against assertive Collingwood defenders. And I think they'll be able to do that to Port Adelaide as well.
Now, I want to highlight this man, Ross, who is critical to the Western Bulldogs winning this game and helping turn it around. So you coached a man by the name of Nick Revel, who just ran figure eights, and he was hard to stop. Whereas Aaron's become really easy to play against because he's got a great highlights reel, but he's second and third leads just aren't there.
Yeah, I think he's got a big trick, and that's if he launches and he competes, brings it to ground. But we had all his goals are basically from marks or free kicks. He needs to get some ground level, but he's only a young player. Like, the expectations are huge on him, but he needs to develop another way. He's good at bringing his teammates in, but he needs some goals, as you said, in some different patterns.
They're stopping his run and jump. He hasn't got a plan B at the moment. Jake Stringer now. As I said, we touched on Dusty Martin, like what he's doing, and we started this, Ed, way back in Tassie when Ed went berserk when he dominated against Hawthorn. But what's the plan?
Well, he's the number one player ranked in the competition, I think, for 9 out of 10 weeks. So he's a centre-forward player. He's hard forward out of the middle. He breaks tackles, and he makes good decisions, and he shrugs tackles. Like, he's an incredible player at the moment. But I think the concern the Bulldogs have got is they haven't got... Well, they play their system. They don't tag, they don't match up. So he's going to get a free run, as Liberatore will do. They've been sitting on him. So I think both teams are just going to play their systems and attack. I think you're going to see a real free-flowing game, and I think Stringer could easily be BOG.
And you think the Bombers can win this one?
I think the Bombers can do it. I've seen enough of them. I think they've got some running in some injury and confidence. They wanted to win last week, and after quarter time they struggled. They're missing some connection. And as Luke said, they're either going too quick and open themselves up or too slow. So they're trying to find that happy medium, whereas Essendon have got it. I think Essendon can get it done. Peter Wright, chance to get another bag.